Hello once again. As promised, here's the sequel to my previous video. Now we have Mortal Kombat. Originally released in the 1990s, this game was very controversial when it first released. And yes, I am jumping straight into it. Mortal Kombat was basically the straw that broke the camel's back in the 90s. As video games were already starting to get a lot more violent as the graphics started to increase. So having a game with blood and violent gore was just considered too much back then. And it created the ESRB. I'm telling you now though, if they thought this was too much, then I really don't want to see how they would react to Mortal Kombat X. Just saying. But other than that, how was the first Mortal Kombat? Decent. It's not like the first Street Fighter where it was a bad game that eventually got good. No, it started out good and just got better over time. But just like Street Fighter, it would immediately improve leaps and bounds by the sequel. Everything about Mortal Kombat 1, the original Mortal Kombat, not the game actually called Mortal Kombat 1. Okay, for the rest of this video, I'm either going to call the original Mortal Kombat just Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat Original. And Mortal Kombat 1 will keep its name. Alright? Sound fair? Good. But this game was actually really good for the time, and it's still pretty good today. Scorpion and Raiden are a bit underpowered, but other than that, there's nothing really wrong with it. This was also the first game to popularize secret characters in fighting games for a long time, with the infamous inclusion of Reptile. Whilst every game after this one loves to bring back Reptile in brand new and creative ways, this game actually didn't note that Reptile was in the game. You actually had to go find him. And once you did, you couldn't even play as him, you could only fight him. Mortal Kombat wouldn't really get secret playable characters until much later. And honestly, I kind of miss the old days where there were lots of different secret characters that you had to play a certain way to unlock, instead of just the monetization treatment. I don't think I'm alone on this one, but I might be. Mortal Kombat Original has the smallest roster of any game. Makes sense, it was their first time. It would be really crazy to start off with something super insane. But what really surprised me was that Shao Kahn was not even in the first game, but everything else was, from fatalities to the gore. There's not much else to say about Mortal Kombat 1, so let's go right to the... Now Mortal Kombat 2 is basically just Mortal Kombat 1 with a few extra characters and some of the problems fixed. That sounds like a bad thing, but in reality, I think it was probably the best thing that could happen to this series. Take what worked before and continue to work with that. It introduced a lot more iconic characters like Jax and Baraka, and most importantly, Shao Kahn, who would later become the main antagonist of the series for a long time. Yeah, this game is basically not too special when it comes to a lot of other things, but it does have one special thing. It has 3 secret characters, not just 2. Not 1, not 2, 3. 3 secrets. Also, what was that fatality? I have no idea. This footage isn't mine, so I can't even explain what happened there. But what I can explain are the 3 secret characters. You see, now that Reptile is a part of the base roster, The three new secret characters were Jade, Smoke, and Noob Saibot. With Jade and Smoke being utterly ridiculous, and Noob being utterly impossible to do without cheating. Also, this game apparently reads your inputs, so you have to pull everything off perfectly. Otherwise, it'll just counter you no matter what. Like, what? Like, I get it, you need this game to be hard, but that's just cheating. Fun fact, my dad actually played the original 3 Mortal Kombat games when he was a kid. Now, granted, he doesn't play Mortal Kombat much anymore, but when he was young and the arcade scene was still new, he played Mortal Kombat. I honestly envy him because these graphics were probably really breathtaking for the time. Also, I forgot to mention this in my Mortal Kombat 1 section, but this Mortal Kombat actually has. Oh, yeah, there was a toasty added in this game. I forgot to mention that. But this Mortal Kombat and the previous one and the one after this all use live action actors and impose them into the game. Now that is something cool. We don't see that a lot these days, but for when we do, it's pretty. Sorry. Did Sub-Zero just pull out a doll? What the heck? There's one more thing I need to talk about the original trilogy. It does not take itself seriously. Despite everything that would later go on to happen in the series, the first 3 games are not that serious. That really surprised me. I mean, you literally have the sound designer yelling toasty if you get enough uppercuts. Why isn't that a thing anymore? Whatever. Nice. Let's move on to Mortal Kombat 3 and Trilogy. Yep, next up is 3, and by that extension, Trilogy and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Now, this game is very interesting, as it made all of the secret characters playable, making Noob Saibot so powerful that he was banned. And it also made everything just so crazy. But you also have to look at that roster and just be amazed. The roster has gotten so big at this point that everything, and I do mean everything, has gotten off the walls. In fact, there were so many characters and so many colored ninjas that Midway actually created a whole new character named Chameleon, who was basically just all the male ninjas rolled into one, and then a female ninja named Chameleon, who was all the female ninjas rolled into one. They knew that this roster was going crazy. And while I don't think that Ultimate 3 is the best game in the series, I can definitely see that they were stepping up their presentation here when it comes to the goofiness, when it comes to the strengths and weaknesses, when it comes to stage design, when it comes to the fighters' moves, when it comes to the roster. Midway knew that this was going to be their last 2D Mortal Kombat game, so they wanted to end it out with a bang. And yeah, I think they nailed it. They nailed the landing. Mortal Kombat 3 is loved to this day and is still played competitively. Unfortunately, after this, we're gonna see a slight dip in quality. For all of you fighting game fans, you probably don't know what's going to happen. But for all you Mortal Kombat fans specifically, you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. Let's talk about the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. Alright, now we move on to the 3D era of Mortal Kombat with Mortal Kombat 4. for the arcades and Nintendo 64 of all things. Mortal Kombat 4 is definitely a game that exists, for sure. Now, Mortal Kombat 4 is not a bad game, by any means. It's just a little weak when you compare it to what came before. All the characters have basically the same basic moveset, along with a few new ones. But, yeah. This was also the first game to be fully 3D, and this was the first game to introduce weapons to the series. So, this game actually has a lot of good. But for negatives, the new characters stink. Now, not all the new characters are bad. Quan Chi is a really good character, and would later go on to be very important to the story of Mortal Kombat in general. But characters like Kai, I can't tell you what Kai's personality is. He exists and has a vertical fireball. That's all I can tell you. All I can say is Kai is just a lame character. It should also be noted that this is probably the worst of the 3D era in terms of presentation, because it just looks a little too chunky for me. But it's also the best in terms of balance, which means, hey, in terms of presentation, we're only going to go up from here, and it's always going to look better every game. But in terms of balance, we can only go down. Now, that's not to say that Mortal Kombat is going to be terrible at balancing the characters from this point onward. But, dang it. Things are gonna get a little sloppy from here on out. Also, when it comes to the new characters, don't be surprised if you forget their names entirely. Except for one character in specific that a certain Jack has already talked about. But I'll link his channel in the description so you can check out his video for yourself. Trust me, he does a way better job at it than I do. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Mortal Kombat Deception. I'm only going to show footage of Deadly Alliance because they look identical. Also because I think Deadly Alliance is slightly better than Deception. But, yeah. Also because I think they are exactly the same, just with different characters. Now, granted, these characters are pretty darn sweet. Kenshi was a great character. No denying it. Everything about Kenshi was amazing. But then you got Dairo. Can you even tell me anything about Dairo other than he would later go on to turn into Havoc? Yeah, didn't really think so. Finally, and then there's Su Hao. Su Hao has got to be the most hated fighting game character of all time, and it's not even close. I joked about Rufus briefly in my previous video, but even Rufus has his fans. Su Hao, every video I see talking about him is either an underrated video, a video all about people hating him, or nothing. Su Hao is literally just a character that everyone hates. Also, what was with Reptile being a full-blown reptile instead of being a half-human, half-reptile? Just asking. But yeah, Deadly Alliance was an okay game. It introduced some stance changes and customization, which, that was actually a good idea. And I am really glad that it would come back in a later form just a lot better. What do I mean by that? Well, stick around until we talk about X. Then you'll understand. But yeah, Mortal Kombat, Deception, and Deadly Alliance feel identical, honestly. So yeah, they're here. But now let's talk about the final 3D era game, Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Armageddon is basically just the previous two games, but now everyone's here. Everyone from the previous games is here. Jax is here. Scorpion is here. Kano's here. Both Chameleons are here. Both of them. Even Blaze is here. What? You didn't know who Blaze was? He was that random background character, silly. No, I'm just kidding. You're not silly. You're great. Armageddon looks the best out of these 3D games. But I'm gonna say it right now. I'm not gonna be talking about our Mortal Kombat versus DC, as I don't really view that as a mainline series game, as it has nothing to do with the main story. Plus, it's not very good. Let me just tell you right now, infinites are everywhere. Characters can buff themselves up with no issue. Everyone is either super viable or not viable. If your character starts doing an infinite, you lose. And the fatalities aren't even that great. So instead, we just got to deal with Armageddon, and Armageddon was fine. It's fine. It looks really good, and has some mechanics that I like, but no one's really screaming for this cast to come back. There's not much more I can say about Armageddon, really. So, let's move on to the first ever mainline series game to be made by NetherRealm Studios. A game simply known as Mortal Kombat, or Mortal Kombat 9 if you so wish. Though its official name is just Mortal Kombat. But for the sake of clarity, I'm going to call it Mortal Kombat 9 for the rest of this video. Mortal Kombat 9 was the first mainline Mortal Kombat game to be developed by NetherRealm Studios, who was owned by Warner Brothers. Which means that these guys officially are now owned by Warner Brothers at this point, which is both amazing and terrifying. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 9 is where things start getting back on track, in my opinion. Now, am I saying that Mortal Kombat 9 is a great game? Not really. There are only 5 characters in this game who are actually viable. Everyone else is easily just beaten by them. And the story mode is so bad. It's just really bad, trust me. But the gameplay, trust me on this one, it's really good. It's really good. Everything about Mortal Kombat 9 just feels good to play. Mortal Kombat 9 is return to form. Is it a perfect return to form? Not really. But it was NetherRealm's first time, so I can't give them too much flack. This was also the first Mortal Kombat game, not counting the DC one, to have guest characters who are both on screen right now. Kratos, who was exclusive to the PlayStation version, and Freddy Krueger, who was one of the first DLC characters. Now, is it amazing that these guys are in the game? Well, is that even a question? Of course they are. Of course, it's amazing that they are. But can I see the problems? Heck yeah. Kratos is banned from competitive play because he's console exclusive, and Freddy Krueger is one of the 5 viable characters, meaning you have to buy him in order to even have variety in your gameplay, which is really bad. But all in all, Mortal Kombat 9, really good game. Let's see how the rest of the Mortal Kombat NetherRealm Studios games hold up. Trust me, and spoiler alert, they're all going to be pretty positive. With a few negatives, but we'll get to that. Mortal Kombat X. This was the game that got me into the series. Mainly because it was the first one I actually played. I played it at my uncle's house because he owned the game. And instantly I loved it. Yeah, it was a bit gory for my taste at the time. I grew out of that. But everything about this game was good. First off, the enhanced moves just feel great to play. Every character choice was amazing, except for Bo Show, but I never been a Bo Show fan. All the DLC characters were fantastic. The X-ray kills, while being a little bit too overpowered, were still fun. The fatalities were back to their gory goodness. And biggest of all, the guest characters. I'm just gonna say it right now. I don't care if this is a popular opinion or not, but I think Mortal Kombat X had the best guest characters. Those being Jason Voorhees, Predator, Xenomorph, and Leatherface. I don't care how viable they are. I don't care if they're even good. They are good in my eyes. I think it's safe to say that Mortal Kombat is known for introducing a lot of archetypes into its, field. So why not the slasher archetype? And wouldn't you guess it? Jace. Jason is just so good. I think that Jason is probably my favorite guest character. And Jason alone would have been the reason why I love this game. But then there was the customization of the moves. Adding 3 stances to the game was just a fantastic idea. Now you can play 3 versions of the same character. Technically 4 if you count the version without any changes. It's just the base character, but yeah. And out of all the things that would get evolved, changed, and or stay relevant for the rest of the series, I am so glad this was one of them. Because that way, you can play as the character you like, but you can still change and customize them. It feels so good. Now, I have to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this game has DLC too, and yes, you have to pay for it. But, yeah, it wasn't too bad at first. But trust me, it would get way worse later on. Later on, it would just get way worse. And kind of sour the reputation for a while. Speaking of that DLC model, Mortal Kombat 11. Here we go. To date, Mortal Kombat 11, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think Mortal Kombat 11 is the game with the biggest roster out of all of them. Mortal Kombat 11 is a wonderful game. Taking everything that worked about the previous games and just dialing it up. Even gorier, even faster, even more balanced. Yeah, That's right. Everything is just so balanced in this game. The story mode is actually decent for a change. The interactable objects, which I forgot to mention back in Mortal Kombat X, but are still here, are, well, decent. But, yeah, they could be done better. But this game also introduced two brand spankin' new mechanics. The customizable moveset, which would not be continued any further after this, but hey, it was nice that it went out with a bang. And the fatal blow, which, despite how powerful it is really balanced. Because you need to be low on health and you need to land it. And even then, your opponent can just mash out of most of the damage. But even when taking that in consideration, the fatal blow is still a really good mechanic, and I'm glad it continued to go forward. The only thing I really don't like about this game is its monetization problem. Half of the characters are locked behind DLC. Half of the story is locked behind DLC. That's my only big issue. The DLC characters are not required to complete the game, as they are powerful, but not overly so. But still, the fact that half of these characters are locked behind a paywall is really annoying. And so far, it is the worst example. But I said so far because I think I know that Mortal Kombat 1 will be worse. Oh, speaking of Mortal Kombat 1. Well, speak of the devil and he shows up. Mortal Kombat 1 is our final game. And, at the time of making this video, is the most recent game in the series, with the DLC still yet to come out. Well, all of it. Now, the characters that are here are amazing. And I love the idea of starting the franchise afresh with the loveliness. Also, the detail in the background is just so amazing. Plus, I love the little gameplay changes. Now everything feels quicker and snappier, just the way I like it. And this game is just fun. Despite its monetization issues, I can't bring myself to hate it. That being said, I met my quota of being nice. Oh yeah, the guest characters in both Mortal Kombat 11 and 1 are amazing. But yeah, I met my quota of being nice, and I probably will still be nice this game. But now it's time to talk about the feature that I'm kind of mixed on. So the customizable move sets are gone now, which is a little disappointing. I am sad that the customizable moves are no longer a thing, as that was the best thing for Mortal Kombat X, and it continued to be great in Mortal Kombat 11. But now instead, we have companions, known as cameos. And these cameos, I don't know how to feel about them. On one hand, there are only a few who are actually viable, and two of them are just Scorpion and Sub-Zero, even though they're already in the game. But on the other hand, I love how it can take characters that otherwise would have been completely forgotten and lost to the dustbins of history, and gives them another chance to live. It's actually really nice. And I wish we could find more compromises in gaming like this. But now we have to talk about the worst part of the game. The fact that Once again, half the roster is locked behind DLC. Look, okay, look. I get it. You need to monetize the game. But the game is already a full-priced game. With Mortal Kombat 11, it's a little more forgivable because that game is constantly on sale. So, it's not that bad. But Mortal Kombat 1 is still a full-priced game. Yes, there's a premium edition where if you buy it, all the characters will come to you for free. But the fact that you even need to pay extra for the characters is a little scummy. I just wish there was another way. Like, maybe, okay, the guest characters I get you need to buy, but the other guys, why don't you use the shop to buy them? That will be a lot more positively received. And it would give the currency something to do other than cosmetics. Mortal Kombat 1 is a fun game, but it has a lot of issues. A lot of issues that are being ironed out. But honestly, when it comes to which one I think is the best out of all the Mortal Kombat games, I'm gonna have to say it's either 11 or X. 1 is a very close second, but 1 just misses the mark. Anyway, that was a quick retrospective of the Mortal Kombat series. I am so happy to be talking about this series and Street Fighter. But I'm going to actually make one more episode talking about some of the guest characters. I was going to I'm going to talk about some of the guest characters inside of these games next time. Actually, I have a better idea. Next time, I'm going to make a video all about what characters I would like to see added into which games, mostly Mortal Kombat. And then we can all talk about why I am right or why I am completely wrong. Because that sounds like fun. Anyway, I've been the Gamer Nerd, and don't forget to get them toasties.